What's going on, guys? How are you doing today? Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. This is a little bit informal. I'm putting this video together because I got a lot of new agents that are writing business. And because we're in such a huge growth mode right now, not all of them have the ability to work with a field trainer or are choosing to do some of this business on their own, which if that's the case, it's okay. But I want to give you some tips on really how underwriting works. So do me a favor, grab a pen, grab a pad, take some notes on this, because the information I'm going to give you today could help you, streamline business that you're submitting, get you to get business to get approved a lot faster, keep your clients from buyer's remorse if things are taking too long, and probably help you through some headaches on some of the things that I had to learn when I was new in the business that, maybe you guys can shortcut. So a couple disclosures. Number one, not every single company operates the exact same way, but most companies operate in a very similar fashion. So what I'm going to talk about today is more generic things that you got to look for, things you got to expect, things you got to be able to do. And if you know this stuff, you can pretty much work with any insurance company that you wish to. And every company will have kind of its own little preferences and so on and so forth. So number one, first off, is this is underwriting training once you've submitted the business. This is not training on how to run quotes, what's the website, what's this, what's that. That piece you already know. So if you happen to be that agent that has business that you've turned in and you're saying to yourself, well, what's the next steps? This isn't a simplified product where it gets approved in 5 minutes. There's actually a back and forth amount of things that I need to do in order to get the underwriter to approve this policy, to put this policy in force, to get the client covered and get me to a place where I can receive the commissions, right? I'm speaking as though I'm the new agent. If you're that person, take notes. Here you go. Ready? Number one, once you turn in the business, you've got to figure out a way that company wants you to communicate with the underwriter. Now, some underwriters will not communicate with you at all, but they will assign you a case manager. The case manager is kind of like the gatekeeper. You could talk to the case manager as though they're the underwriter. But you got to figure that out first. What's the best way to figure that out? Call the insurance company up, talk to the underwriting department and say, hey, what's the best method to communicate with you? They typically have an online portal where you could see the requirements of that policy. They might have an email system where they're sending you emails with updates on a regular basis, right? They might prefer you to speak with a case manager. You want to call that company and figure out how they prefer for you to communicate with the underwriter and receive updates, okay? If they recommend the portal, have them walk you through it. Have them walk you through the website, logging in, where do I see the requirements, so on and so forth. Number one, okay? So number one, I'll write it here. Know how to communicate. Okay, number two, right? Have a tracker. Have some type of a Google sheet, Excel spreadsheet, whatever you want that helps you track this business from and the kind of things you want to have is, what's the client's name, information on the policy number. That's the first thing that the underwriter typically assigns. It's a policy number to the policy. You want to have that info, what date it was submitted, a section for comments, dialogue that you can write down, notes you can write down with regard to the communication that the underwriter's having with you. You can have that. Have something in place for that lets you track your business, right? Number two, have a tracker. Number three, underwriting requirements. There's a list of things that the underwriters are going to do automatically without you, and there's a list of things that they're going to need for you to do, right? What are the things that they're going to do? Let me first put together a list of the things that they're going to do, right? This is the underwriter's to-do list versus you, the agent, to-do list. The underwriter is going to pull a couple things. They're going to pull motor vehicle reports, see the person's driving record. They're going to pull the MIB report, which is the Medical Information Bureau, see what the person's medical history looks like. They're going to pull a prescription report, see what their prescriptions look like. They're going to pull a credit bureau report to see what's in their criminal history. They're going to pull a criminal report to see what they have from a criminal record standpoint. And they're going to pull something that's rather new called a LexisNexis report, which is a report that kind of shows your living patterns. How many times do you relocate? How many times you change jobs? What's your pattern of consistency? It's kind of a variable type of report that right now it's fairly new, but this report has given insurance companies the ability to get larger face values of insurance amounts approved without medical underwriting. They're going to do all this stuff without you. Now, based on what they find, they might ask you for stuff. If they can't find the person's motor vehicle report, they might ask you for a copy of the driver's license. They'll say it to you, okay? By whatever method they communicate. We need a driver's license. Get a copy of the driver's license, send it to them, right? By the way, when I talk about know how to communicate, right, you also need to know how they prefer for you to submit business to them. How do you submit these requirements to them? Is it via email? Is it uploading it? And what method? You want to know that, right? When they pull the Medical Information Bureau, they might have a couple things for you. They might have questions, things that they found in the medical report that they need answers to. Your job is to call the client, get the answers, get it back to them, right? They might have questionnaires, right? Someone is diabetic. They have a questionnaire that the client needs to fill out and sign. Someone has had cancer. They might have a questionnaire they need to fill out and sign. If there's a questionnaire, again, ask them, how do I get access to these documents? How do I get access to these documents, Mr. Underwriter? Can you email me a PDF of it, or can you guide me on how to get these documents in the portal, right? Guide, there's nothing wrong with that piece. There's an 800 number for a reason for you to call and learn that process. They might ask for that. They might ask, because of the Medical Information Bureau, they might ask for an actual medical exam to be done. That's known as a paramedical exam, whether it's a questionnaire and typically blood and urine. Sometimes they might ask for an EKG. And when they ask for this medical questionnaire, you want to know what specifically do they need. Is it just the medical questionnaire, or do they need the medical questionnaire plus, a blood and urine sample, right? If you need to do that, you need to have access to a nurse that is ready to work for you. You can call companies like Exam One. There's a lot of paramedical companies out there, or you can build a relationship with a local nurse that does paramedical exams for insurance companies and be able to work with that person. But you got to figure out a way to order medicals. Exam One, typically you create an online portal with them. You log in, you make your request, so on and so forth. How you want to prep your client is this. Tell your client, listen, when you schedule this medical exam, make sure you schedule it early in the morning, not late in the evening. Why? Because you need to be fasting. You can't eat. So no eating after midnight the night before, number one. No alcohol the night before, number two. No, don't be around anybody that smokes tobacco if you're a non-tobacco user. The last thing I need is secondhand smoke in your system. None of that stuff. None of that stuff. Eat a healthy dinner the night before. Don't have a high fat content. And the morning of, eat absolutely nothing but drink a lot of water. Now, after they draw blood, after they take your urine sample, you are free to Krispy Kreme the rest of your day away, but don't do any of that stuff before they draw blood and take a urine sample. And they can absolutely not find any type of alcohol in your system, marijuana nothing of that in your system when they draw your blood and take a urine sample. But you got to be able, this is probably the most time consuming, is getting this medical done. This is very important that you do. Because of the medical, they might ask for what's called an APS, which is an attending physician statement. This, believe it or not, is actually supposed to be in this category. This is something the underwriter does. APS stands for attending physician statement. That means that they found something in the MIB, and because they found something, they want to get more detailed reports from that specific doctor. Now, if they can't find a way to communicate with that doctor, your job now is to call the client up and say, hey, I need a better way to communicate with this doctor. What doctor was it? What's their phone number? What's their address? What's their protocol? What is it? Some facilities, for example, the veterans for VA benefits, they have their own form that they require the client sign instead of the form that comes with the insurance application. Every insurance application comes with what's called a HIPAA form. It's a form that authorizes the insurance company to request medical records. Some physicians, some facilities, like I said, the VA, for example, they have their own form that they require. So if they have their own form that they require, you need to get that form. Sometimes the underwriters have it. Sometimes you need to call the facility themselves directly and get their HIPAA form, have the client signed it, and then send that to the underwriter, right? Send that to the underwriter so they can begin that process, right? But APSs sometimes take a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. When they get into the 2-week realm, that's typically when I try to get the client involved. That's when I'll call the client and say, hey, Mr. Client, you know, your doctor's taking a little bit longer than what we wanted. I need you to do me a favor. Can we get on a 3-way phone call and call that doctor's office and request that they send those medical records a little bit more diligently, because we're waiting. We have everything we need. Underwriters already pulled your driving record. You're good. Your prescription record. You're good. Your criminal record. Your credit report. You're good. Your LexisNexis. Good. All they're waiting for is this last physician's report in order to make a decision and approve. That's all we're waiting for. That's all we're waiting for. So you as an agent, to recap, just so that you know, figure out a way to communicate with your underwriter. Figure out how they want you to submit information. Have a tracking system, right? And understand underwriting requirements, which are these right here. These things, when you see them in the underwriting report that you receive, just know the underwriter's going to do it. If they can't do it, they'll let you know that they can't do it for whatever reason. They might need something. These things, however, they might need from you. Questions. Hey, the client said no to this, but this is what we found. Give me, help me understand them a little bit better. Driver's license. We need a copy of the driver's license. Non-resident aliens. You need copies of their, their green cards. You need copies of their ITINs. You need copies of that kind of stuff, right? Questionnaires they might need because of certain things that pop up, right? Medicals they might need. They need all this stuff in order to make an approval. Now, once they've received everything, give the underwriters a good 24 to 48 hours to make a decision. After 48 hours, if they haven't made a decision, there's nothing wrong with calling them on a daily basis and saying, hey, I need an approval on this. Why do I say it that way? Because sometimes underwriters get backed up. They get backed up, especially during the holiday seasons and stuff. If there's not enough underwriters and, they have everything they need, why can't they make an approval? You might just need to call them up and remind them, hey, listen, you got everything. You did everything on your end. We did everything on our end. We gave it to you. You're ready to make a decision. Help us make a decision. Once they make a decision, they're going to approve it, rate it, or decline it. If they're rating it, it costs more money than how you applied it, right? If they approve it, they approved it how you applied it or better. And if they decline it, they declined it. Sometimes they'll tell you why, sometimes they won't. If they don't tell you why, it's because there's something confidential. The client will receive something via via mail. And if they don't receive something, the client needs to request it with a written request to the underwriter as to why they got declined or why they got rated or whatever it is, right? Every company operates differently. Sometimes they'll tell you, the agent, sometimes they won't. But they'll go from approval. Now, in order to get it from approved to issued means this policy is in force, it's in effect. Approval doesn't mean it's in effect. Approval just means that everything is good, they're ready to move forward. Issued, what they need is that first payment. Now, if you're smart, when you submit the application, when it comes to payment, you'll check the box that says, hey, upon approval, automatically draft, and prep your client for that. Let them know, Mr. Client, when they approve you within 24 to 48 hours, they're going to draft the first payment, so be ready for that, right? They won't draft the first payment if the person is rated, because now they want you to talk to the client, see if the client accepts the new pricing, and then you have to respond back to the underwriter, yes, they accept the new pricing, move forward. But approval, issued. Once it's issued, they've drafted first payment from the client. The next piece of the puzzle, once it's issued, it's technically in force. It's an active policy. You're either going to get paid from the insurance company. For most of them, they'll pay you and they'll send you the policy, whether it's electronic or physical, right? And you'll have to deliver the policy and get a signed delivery receipt that the client acknowledges they've received the policy. Some companies, they won't even pay you until you've delivered the policy. They'll say it's approved, it's issued, but we need the delivery paperwork. We need the paperwork that the client has signed, acknowledging and accepting the policy before we pay you. You need to know what each company requests, what each company wants. You need to know that piece. You need to know if the insurance company has a two-step electronic signing process, in order to get an application submitted. You need to know that stuff, and you need to remember that stuff, put together a cheat sheet for yourself, however it is. You need to know which companies want ink signatures on the delivery receipts versus the companies that don't mind an electronic signature. Which companies are only going to mail you a physical policy, which companies are going to email you an electronic policy. You need to know that stuff. And if there's any special requests, there's always a section in the application for special requests that you can write those special requests. But just because you write it there doesn't mean you shouldn't tell the underwriter during the underwriting process, and make sure that they acknowledge. Guys, hopefully this helps you guys out. I didn't want to give you specifics on each individual company, although I do know them. I don't want to give it because I want this video to be able to get used later on in the future. And if companies' protocols change, then the information I'm giving you might go out of date. But I do highly encourage you, reach out to your VPs. Ask them what the specifications are of this company, that company, or the other. Which company do you recommend for this? But overall, this applies to every single company that you submit business to in the life insurance world. Even the simplified issued companies, I want you to know the ones that are willing to approve in 5 minutes, they pull this, and this instantly. Now, the problem is if something comes up in the Medical Information Bureau that would require some of these things, they'll just outright decline it and then say, hey, we can't simplify approve, but we can full underwrite. You wish to do that. Some companies are only simplified approve and they'll decline it and say, hey, sorry. Some companies are simplified with full underwriting. You just got to understand that and learn that. Get to know the underwriters, get to know their protocols, take plenty of notes on how they do business, take plenty of notes, create your own cheat sheets. And as you create those cheat sheets, help your downlines understand the companies as well too. Hopefully this helps. Okay, if you're watching this video and you're not a part of TKO Financial Network and you're looking to be, do me a favor, hit me up, send me a message. My phone number is 239-784-1118. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram as the Millennial Entrepreneur Hustle. You can find me on LinkedIn. However, which way. If you like this information, hit the like button. Okay, hit the subscribe button. Ring a ding-a-ling. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the winner's circle. Have a good one, guys. Be blessed. Bye-bye.